Alright, we're going to be talking about some ward placements and some vision tips and tricks in this video from my time playing support and noticing what a lot of people are doing wrong and trying to figure out how to kind of amend that. So the first thing that we're going to do is on this red side bush right here. A lot of people know this, but some people do not. If you just come anywhere along this wall right here where this tree is, ideally a lot of people just kind of line up against this tree and you place your ward right here against this rock. It will pop right into this bush. You can see if the jungler is in there or if someone is hiding in there, and it just gives you a nice little ward in order to check what's going on that side. Next, we're going to be doing a blue side ward. You can see along this wall, there's this little kind of patch of grass. You really want to come right here and just click on top of this. Then for new people to this ward, I recommend zooming in, and you want to look for this rock right here. You can see the shape. And you just want to take your ward, and you can see there's a little green leaf above it, and you want to place it right on top of that leaf. And it will go ahead and teleport inside of that bush. Once you get accustomed to this, you can just kind of eyeball it, and you can see you can just place it how much. But when you're new to this, it does take a little bit of lineup. Next, we're going to be doing 2 dragon pit wards. This will be 2 pretty useful ones. For the first one, you're going to come right along here, right above where this vine meets the wall. And then you want to look at this blade of grass and look right where it meets this bush. And you just want to ward right there. And I'll let you see inside of this bush. Next, you want to come down here to this waterfall. Line up right here. You can see there will usually be a snail here. Sometimes there's not. But you just want to look right on top of the snail and place your ward. And then that will go ahead and place it inside of that bush. And you can get wards in both of these bushes from Dragon Pit. This next one will be a little bit of a trick. When you're coming from mid lane or this bush, you want to walk along here. And you ideally really want to get like a route into here right where this crack in the wall forms. And then you want to place the ward right here on top of this tree. If you do it a little bit too high like that, the ward will pop up there. But if you do it through here, you can do it right on this bush. And unless the enemy is standing right here, they will not be able to see it as you come up. And you can place this ward and then very quickly go on top of them and make a fight happen if that's what you're looking to do. Alright, next we're going to be doing these bushes outside of the wolf's pit on the blue side and on the red side. You want to come up right up here to where this rock breaks, and then you want to look right here. There's going to be a little crack here on the tree, and you want to place it right there. I'll also let you see inside of this bush, and you can see a similar lineup over here on the red side. And here, this one's pretty easy. You can do it right here, this is a little far up, and you just look for this bush, and you can pretty much do it anywhere along this tree, and it'll pop up. This one you can do it a little bit farther back, and just here, again, on this part of the tree. Alright, for our next set of wards, we will be over here into the Baron Pit. You want to come right over here, right where the sword is, and come right into the wall. And you want to look right here, and you want to try and place it just outside of this bush. And you can see right there, and you can go ahead and get it inside of the bush and check what's going on there. Next, you want to come right under this shield. You can see there's a little bit of a vertical line coming from this side. You want to line up right under it, and you just want to place it right around anywhere inside of this bush where the tree meets the bush, and you can see you'll place it right into that tribush so you can see what is going on there. Next, we'll be talking about a few pink positions that tend to be mostly looked over and forgotten. The first one will be inside of these Baron and Dragon Pits. You can see where these walls kind of curve in. They have very steep inclines. You can usually tuck a pink ward in there, and people would tend to not notice unless they run very close to the pit. Then they'll see it. But if, let's say you're on red side and you place that ward, the blue side jungler is very likely to just kind of walk across here and not really look too deep into the pit, so they won't be able to spot it. The Baron one tends to get found a little bit more, whereas with the Dragon one, the Dragon one has a little bit of a steeper wall, so you can see if we place it either on this side of the wall or on this side of the wall. I prefer this side usually if I'm on blue side. You can place it on there, and the red side jungler will usually not find it. Sometimes while they're clearing the scuttle, if they walk along here, they can find it, but a lot of the time they will just kind of ignore it, and they won't really notice it until they go to do Dragon. The next set of wards we have will be more pink ward positions. We'll be go ahead and having over here on the red side, this bush right here that I'm standing in tends to never get swept, and people never really walk through it unless it's usually a support player will come through here around 25 minutes into the game and clear this bush out. But you can place a pink right in here, and this will let you see when the jungler is doing their red buff, and things of that nature. You can see their pathing, if they're going to their cogs, if they're going topside. It's a really helpful word. This word also applies on the blue side, although on the blue side, this bush tends to get walked through a little bit more. People tend to walk through this bush and this bush in order to get to dragon, so it can be a little bit harder to protect, but a pink here will do somewhat of the same thing, but it is very much more likely to get found. Next, we're going to be talking about just useful words. These ones are not particularly flashy or showy, but they are just very useful for keeping track of where the enemy is. The first one that we're going to be doing is right here when you're on blue side, when you have lane pressure or you just have the ability to kind of walk up and check this. You really want to come up into this bush and try and place a ward in the middle of this rock. It can be very hard sometimes. When you mess it up, you can see that the blue buff gets hidden, but you can still see the bush and what's coming into it, and you can still see this precipice of the blue buff, so you should be able to see if the jungler hops on it. But this is a jungle tracking ward to keep an idea of where the jungler is, so you can see when they're on the blue, when they're on the gromp, and that way you know when you can fight bot lane. Additionally, this does work for top side as well. So if you're on red side and you're a top laner, you can do the same sort of thing. You just come across here, you place a ward right there. If you mess it up, you usually only get one camp, or if you really mess it up, you get 0 camps. But you can see that the gromp is there and the blue is there. But you will be able to see the jungler when he does come to path up and do these camps. So it'll help you with that jungle tracking. The next one we're going to be talking about is this kind of wolves wards. There's 2 sets. There is this ward that you can place from the other side of the wall. You can just kind of absentmindedly put it over the wall. This lets you see wolves, so if you're on blue side protecting your tier 2s or protecting your nexus, this allows you to kind of protect these and get an idea of where the enemy is pathing and things like that. Additionally, in the early game, a very easy one to do is to place one on this side of the wolves. When you're pathing in from red side, you just come in here and you place one anywhere along here. Junglers will tend to not sweep it. I prefer to do it around here because you can see this entrance. And this also applies to the red side jungle as well. You just place a ward right over the wall like that, and that gives you this kind of idea. And then the same sort of thing, I just like to place the ward like right around here, or even here. But this gives you an idea of the jungler's pathing and really helps in the early game. The next one will be a Baron ward. This is a ward that people tend to not sweep because they're very lazy with their pathing, with their sweeping. Usually when people turn on the sweeper, they'll kind of walk around here, walk inside of the pit, and then go immediately towards these bushes and start clearing these out. Because of that, you can place a ward right here in this little inlet. And as you can see, once I get further away, this does give vision of the Baron entrance. So we'll be able to see when they kind of walk on it. A lot of the times, they can sneak by if they just walk strictly along this wall, but ADCs will kind of walk back and forth in order to space. And a lot of other champions that kind of walk back and forth just because. So you'll be able to see when they get on top of Baron, and it tends to not get swept, so it's a pretty free ward to keep vision on Baron. Another big ward is, I actually got this one from watching Core JJ. This is a pretty big ward that people really don't sweep that much. You know, when you're defending your blue side jungle here, and you really want to have a ward in either here or here in order to track, you can honestly just put a ward here. This covers the same positions, you just won't see inside of the bush, but you can see the enemy's rotations, and it helps a lot. And people tend to not sweep this, just because it's not in a bush. People tend to not really think about ward locations if they're not in bushes, and they don't see you placing it down. The same thing happens for the red side as well. If you just want to get an idea of what is happening on this red side, you just place a bush, or a ward right in this little alcove, and you can see this entire rotation. The next one we're talking about is a pretty common one, but it's something that people should know. When you're wanting to get a heads up or you're wanting to track the enemy laners or the jungler, when you're pushed up past this tier 1 or you're looking to get dragon done soon, you can place a ward right here in this T intersection. It doesn't have to be exact at all, but it will just kind of show you what's going on. You can see all the entranceways and how they relate and where the enemy is coming. A lot of the time the enemy will just kind of walk through here with sweeper on. They will clear your ward, but it's fine because you really just want to know if they're coming, so that way you can get a heads up and it gives you that kind of advanced warning. And this thing also works for the blue side jungle, and you can see it's the same sort of effect. You just kind of sit in here, and then you can see all the entrances, and it'll give you a heads up if the enemy is coming to contest your Baron. Next, we're going to be talking about ward positioning. A lot of the time with this Tribush and the Tribush on the side of red side as well, people will be very lazy about where they place their ward. They'll place it around here on this lower wall. This is fine if you really can't get into the bush and you need to force a ward in. As you can see, you can still see the enemies over there. You can still see when they're coming. It's a little bit short notice, but it's still fine. So if I refresh my wards here, you can see that if we have the opportunity to place it deeper, and usually you want to do this preemptively so that way you're not face checking this ward and just die. You want to place it here on this northeasternmost part, and you can see a lot more. You can see more into this eastern side. It'll give you a nice little heads up of when enemies are coming, and you can see further into the river, so that way people can't or are not able to sneak up on you. And the same kind of ideology applies in the top lane as well. You don't want to place it along here along this lower wall. You really want to place it like right here. And it's that same sort of thing. It'll give you that deep entrance into the river, and you can see a lot more. Speaking more about vision control and ward positioning, something that people will do a lot of the time with this bush is really mess up the ward and not really think about what they're placing the ward for. You need to think about why you're placing this ward, and that'll dictate where you want to place it. If you want to maintain control of the river or get a nice tracking on the river, you can place the ward at the southernmost point or the northernmost point if you're on this blue side, so that way you can get a nice control of the river. You can see, if I just teleport over here, you can see a nice little wide area. You can check to see if anybody's coming. Usually they can't sneak past unless they walk past this little area behind this bush, but most people will not be thinking about that, and that will allow you to keep a track on the river and see what's going on. But if I refresh my wards, but if you're not able to protect this ward, because this ward is very easily swept, if someone comes along with a sweeper and they just kind of walk here, this ward will get revealed 99% of the time. If you want to have a bit of a stealthier ward, or you're trying to maintain more control of this little pathway and see who's walking through here, you can just go to the northeasternmost point of this and place it right there. A lot of the time people will just kind of absentmindedly sweep through here, and they'll walk up and they won't clear this entire bush. So they'll just get around halfway through and they'll think it's clear, and they'll just continue doing scuttle or move the dragon or whatever. And this ward is pretty good for river. You can see it only gives you that small margin of where people are going to be, but this ward will be a lot of the time undetectable and people will not clear it. So it'll give you a nice little idea. A lot of the time it'll catch the scuttler pathing as well. So if you want to see the scuttle crab and see if it's up, this ward will catch it a lot of the time, and a lot of the times the junglers will be greedy with their pathing. They won't try and hide from wards, they'll just walk through the center of the river, and then they'll get spotted that way. And this also applies to this side of the river as well. You need to think about your positioning. If you want that river control, just place it outward most. And you can see, and you need to be able to protect this ward or it will get swept very easily. And again, if you just want to maintain control of this inward pathway and you just want a little bit of a peek into the river, you can place it right there. And it's the same sort of idea. Alright, the next one we're going to be talking about here is this pixel bush here and on the top river. A lot of the time people will just throw a ward either right here or in the middle of the bush and they think it's good enough. The important thing with this bush is it pretty much is pixel perfect. So in order to catch a jungler walking through here, you do need to ward it correctly. So you really need to get as close as you can to the bush and get the westernmost point. And you need a ward like that, and that way you'll be able to see the jungler when they're pathing forward. And even if I walk into the bush, you can see that we don't catch them here, but we should be able to catch them in this little 1 second window where they're walking past and they're trying to get into the mid lane. So if you throw the bush into this middle part or this eastern part, then you will not be able to spot these people, and it's pretty much just a bait ward because your laner or your mid laner will think that no one is coming, and then they're going to be very surprised when the jungler walked past a ward and comes to gank mid lane. And the same thing applies for this topside river as well. You want to avoid placing it in this middle or the westernmost part. You want to place it to the easternmost part so that way you can see when the enemy jungler is coming. And that way you'll be able to see them right as they walk into the river, and they have to show on this ward when they come around this corner. So they will always be shown, but it needs to be as far east as possible, otherwise it will not catch it.
Inlet holler, where am I?